Hello again, it's Jim Parsons with lesson 26 of Write That Novel Now. And we're moving on to some of the more esoteric things, some of the things that aren't essential to your novel, but that make it more interesting, or even more interesting to you as you write it. And the two things I would like to talk about today are theme, having a theme running through your story, and the use of symbolism, creating symbols that might represent your characters or the issues that you're tackling. Well, first of all, let's have a look at theme. There's a very good chance that your novel has a theme, whether you even realize it or not. For example, the average murder mystery story has the basic theme, crime does not pay. So you're not really making any great effort to work that theme in. But if you do want to include a theme, it can be very useful because then you can ring all the changes on that theme. Let's have a look at what I mean by theme. Basically, when I talk about theme, many people will simply think I mean revenge or romance or loyalty. But for me, they're just topics. Now, I'll go to a PowerPoint display to explain what I mean about it. Okay, let's look at this thing called theme. What is a theme? Well, it's an idea that runs through your storyline or lies below the surface. Maybe your reader spots it, maybe they don't. It can add value by giving the reader something to ponder about. For example, if there are a few incidents of racism in your storyline, it may make your reader stop and think, goodness, how could someone do that to another human being? Or would I think like that? Do I think like that? And so you may open someone's mind, or in fact, many novels have brought about social change because they're powerful. So there's a little job for you. Change the world with your book. The other thing that a theme can do, even if it's in your head to make it work better for you, it can add cohesion and a sense of unity to disparate units. So in other words, if there are some storylines that don't really match up in any other way, they may match up because they share a similar theme running underneath. So if you have a novel in progress, or if you're planning one and you know what's going to happen, let me ask you this. What is your theme? What is the theme emerging in your story as emerged? I automatically put this question to my mentoring clients, my novel writing students. What's your theme? And I get this sort of answer. Love, the father-daughter relationship. It's all about revenge or corruption or loyalty, or it's about finding yourself or finding happiness. Now, most people would consider that they are themes. In fact, most writing mentors, writing books will say that's your theme. I'd like to be a little more specific because I believe I have a distinction I can make here that will help you write better. I don't want you to think of these single words as your theme. Think of them as your topic. So any of those things could be topics. I'd like you, when you consider the theme of your novel, to think in terms of an academic essay. So with an academic essay, there is this general overall topic, and then there is a thesis. In other words, your topic might be autoimmune diseases, but you're not going to write about that. You're not going to research that in such a broad way. You're going to look at some aspect. Perhaps you're going to do specific research on curcumin, and if you intend to research whether curcumin really does help autoimmune disease. So that's going to be your thesis. You're going to pin it down to that. You can even make it a thesis question. Does curcumin help alleviate autoimmune disease? So we've narrowed down this enormous topic to it. And once you've done that, to explore that thesis, your essay then, and your research, you write the thesis statement. Once you've done your research, you may have found that it does indeed do so. So your thesis statement will be, curcumin can assist in the alleviation of autoimmune disease. And then your essay, you then proceed to prove that or disprove it, and or illustrate the point. But let's have a look at how you apply this same idea to your novel. Let's take that lovely overall topic, love. It's very general. Have a look at these possibilities as thesis statements, tearing that big topic apart and finding aspects to talk about. Love conquers all. Unrequited love can sour to hatred. There's no such thing as unconditional love. There is more to love than the physical. Love me, love my dog, or my kids. Love is never having to say you're sorry. Pretty old one. Love is always self-seeking. Love is a gift from God. God is the only source of love, so gay couples must participate in God-given love. If you have a message there to deliver to the world, there's one. You are better off loving no one and never getting hurt. Love is no more than smiling at our own reflection. Love can take us by surprise, and you're never too old to fall in love. Now, would you agree? There are 13 different novels there that you could write. They're all quite different. They would have to have different scenarios to make them work, but they're all about love. So this is why I say, when you try to pick up what I'm calling the theme, it's a statement. It's a statement you're making about your topic, and one that you're going to illustrate right throughout your story, maybe even prove your point. What I urge you to do, work out a statement about whatever it is that you believe is the central story. Once you have this theme, love conquers all, then you can set about ringing the changes. That's a bell ringing expression, and it simply means exploring all the different combinations or different abilities, or many of them. So for example, let's say you could identify that your story has as its basis the thesis, the theme, that there's more to love than just the physical. Now, the initial story that you thought out might be about a husband who is angry his wife has no interest in. But you might expand that and have another character that the wife knows. A refugee woman who has been separated from her husband for 10 years, but keeps writing or phoning daily. And there's this sense that there's a marriage bond there, even though they don't even see one. Or you might have another situation where one partner forgives or tolerates another's infidelity because they find that there's a loving relationship which still survives. If you want to get away from romantic love, there's no reason why you can't contrast that sort of love and the physical love of human relationship to maybe a maternal love. You might have someone else, maybe the angry husband's own mother, may have a deep love for his brother who's wayward, who's in jail or about to go to jail or something like that. And the husband, again, may not be able to understand that in his mother. And if you want to take it even further, you could have a dear old doggy and show the devotion of a dog to its ailing master or mistress. As you know, there's many cases of dogs that have spent years lying on their master's grave. Can you see what I mean? That once you've got your basic story, you can have all these little offshoots, which really makes it a very rich story. And really the only thing connecting a story about a husband who's angry with his wife because she's no longer interested in sex, and between maternal love for a wayward child, is the fact that we're talking about how people respond to love. Have a think about that. What's the value of doing this? Well, you're getting added value from the theme that you chose. It's no longer one simple story. You can use this to add depth to a simple story. And as I indicated, you can show a contrast to the prevailing mood with a secondary character or even a minor character that we don't even hear about. It could be something that the main character reads about in a newspaper and scoffs. They're all ways of broadening your theme. And the other thing, of course, is if you want to be super practical about this, if you've done a word count and you find out you're short by 10,000 words to make a good novel length, you can introduce a subplot with a minor character and explore some variation on your theme. All of those things. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of what you can do by having a theme. Your reader may not even be aware of your theme, but if they are, all the better. It will add a little more enjoyment to your story. All right, that's theme. As I said, your book is likely to have a theme, and if it hasn't, you can have the fun of designing one, making sure it's there. The readers should be able to work out what your theme is, find it. In fact, it's an exercise that many kids do in high school. One of the things is to determine what the theme of a novel is. So it should be there and visible to your reader. Not so symbols and symbolism. They're meant to work beneath the surface, be subliminal rather than out in the open. So let's have a look at symbols. Okay, symbols and symbolism. What is a symbol? Pretty sure all of you would know this. Let's go through it just in case. Symbol is a physical object that represents or stands in for a person or abstract concept, something we can't grasp. And we use them regularly in life. For example, a crown is used to represent a king or queen. So that in countries that actually have a king or a queen, there may be a crown on letterboxes to indicate that this is a royal institution. I think you're all familiar with the idea that an olive branch or a dove represents peace. If we see that sign, we know that we're talking about peace. But that's in real life. What about if we want to use symbols in our novels? In fact, why should we? And there's no reason that you have to. These are, as I said, some of these esoteric things that you can tuck into your novels if you want to. And when we do use symbols in our novels, we're not likely to use things like the dove for peace or the crown for a king that are in ordinary life. We are choosing our own symbols and we're assigning them to things in the novel. I can tell you, it's great fun. But your reader isn't really meant to know about it. They're there in your head. They'll help you write a better novel. They may never be discovered by your reader unless your book becomes such a classic that it's now studied at universities, and university students are set the task of deciding what a certain symbol might mean. And I'm offering you some examples here that are very, very obvious, because I want you to understand the idea rather than have to puzzle out what I mean by that symbol. So I'm using almost cliched symbols here to get my message. And for example, we might associate a female character. We've drawn this character we really love, who has a natural beauty and a sweetness and an elegance. And so we will make her symbol a rose, a natural, beautiful, sweet. This gets tacky. Let's call her Flora. Now, we never state this. We don't say, Flora reminds me of a rose. No, we don't do that. We keep it subtle, so subtle that the reader probably won't perceive it. In fact, if they can spot all your symbols and symbolism, you're probably being way too obvious. To work subconsciously. Whether it does, I don't know, but it's meant to work subconsciously on the reader's mind. And once we've established our metaphor is, our symbolism is, this female character is the equivalent of a beautiful rose in nature. Once we've got that metaphor that we're making in our heads, then we can extend that hidden metaphor. If Flora is like a rose, how do we show that? We can give her a rose garden that she nurtures, or maybe she buys roses regularly for her home. And we can just leave it at that. That's enough. Or we can extend that metaphor. For example, Flora's outside, she snags her leg or her hand on a rose bush that she's tending, and she bleeds. Well, we all know the expression, I'm bleeding, right? And it means emotionally. So this could parallel this incident. That's, we'll have Flora rushing inside and putting antiseptic on and wrapping her hand up, maybe telling her mother on the phone that she's cut her hand or scratched her hand. It'll seem so natural. It's just part of the story, part of the thing. That incident could parallel or presage an incident in the story where Flora is betrayed by her own innocence or by some internal flaw. So this physical thing that's happening actually follows some psychic line, you might say. Another possibility, cut flowers that were supposed to be fresh turn out to have been cold stored, and they wilt and fall the very next day that she puts them in the house. Now that could presage some disappointment for Flora in the real storyline. If you want to get really rough on poor old Flora, a car runs off the road, crashes through the front fence, mashing down her beautiful garden. Now this is going to be earth-shattering for someone who loves her flowers, but could it be paralleled with some sort of a train wreck, her love life? And the reason you don't make these things obvious is that you don't want people to be saying, oh, look, a car's just crushed her flower bed. That means something bad is going to happen to her. I don't want readers to be that in tune with what's going on, right? Work at liminal subconscious level. I've made that example up, and it's not a very good one. So what I'd like to do now is take some examples from a real book. And that real book I'm very familiar with because I wrote it myself. And I wrote these particular images into the book. And that book is Aunt Harriet's Legacy. It's set in colonial times in Australia, has an opening that's set in Sierra Leone in colonial times there. And so it's a family saga. Now, the theme that I've got running through it, the destructive effect of colonisation on the new land and on the Indigenous population. As you know, once European countries colonised other countries, life changed for good for those. So that's what I want to sneak in below my main story, which is a human story. So that's my theme, this destructive effect of colonisation. But I wanted a few subtleties. And so I devised as my symbol for colonisation the axe. Because everywhere they went, colonists cleared land. They had to get rid of the forest, build a town, eventually a city. So they cleared land, they felled trees, they used them for buildings, and they farmed. On the surface, all very good and noble enterprises for civilization, but we know it did cause a devastation for the local population. So I've got the axe I've chosen as my symbol, the axe and tree felling. Consequently, as adjuncts to my storyline, I have scenes. It might be a family scene, people sitting on the veranda, and they can hear the ringing sound of axes. They don't make comments about this. They don't say, oh, look, we are clearing the land and harming the native peoples. No, they just hear it. It's part of their life, like the hubbub we hear outside outdoors today. It's part of life. And so they hear that. I have quite a lengthy scene where Aunt Harriet takes all the children of the town, the village, come to gather round because axemen have been working on the old lady, this enormous tree, the last remaining tree. And I based it on that in North Ryde. They come to see the final moments when the tree comes crashing down. And so this is really symbolic of a local culture coming crashing down under the axe. I have industrious, good workmen, sawing timbers, and farmers, clearing paddocks and building slab huts. All the normal things of colonial enterprise. And my readers may not see those things as symbols. Up here, yep, they, for me, are symbols of colonialism. Now, as well as that, I told you the story actually starts in Africa, in colonial Africa, where the narrating character, Sarah, the missionary's wife in Sierra Leone. And the scene opens with her sitting on her front veranda at the mission station, watching the kids at play, these African kids, and they're throwing a stick backwards and forwards, trying to hit one another's legs, as kids do. And suddenly the stick comes hurling across and it lands on the veranda in front of Sarah's feet and spins to a stop in front of her feet. Now, Sarah at that time says, I don't think it was accidental. This was just to try and scare me. These kids don't like me. So that's how I started the story. Later on, when I suddenly realised that the axe was going to be my symbol for colonialism, I had a nice little brainwave. Instead of making that a stick that comes skidding across the veranda and lands at Sarah's feet, I made it a broken axe handle. The kids were playing with a broken axe handle. Now, to me, the broken axe handle is a symbol of a broken colonialism, and it lands squarely at the missionaries' feet. Okay? Now, I doubt very, very much that any reader would spot this, particularly as it's right at the start of the book. If they read through the book 2 or 3 times, they might spot that. But that's my symbolism. So that's the axe. As well as that, when we get to see Aunt Harriet, Sarah is really the central character, but she tells her story about her Aunt Harriet. And so there's a significance to leaves as well. I have the leaf as a symbol. And when we first meet Aunt Harriet, she's talking to a leaf. In fact, she's talking to a dried bouquet of flowers. And she's talking to a lost love, saying, you are wonderful. And it's clear that this is a lost love affair. So I came up with the idea, it was a fairly obvious one, that Aunt Harriet's dried posy of flowers was actually a symbol of lost love. And I don't mean love that's walked away from you. I mean of a love that has died and is still strong in you. So that was the beginning of it. I thought, well, okay, that's not bad. What if I find ways to make love symbolised by leaves in other areas? And so I had one character propose to Sarah out in the bush, the Australian bush, beside a lovely stream, under a willow. And the willow was shedding those little yellow willow leaves all over the shoulders of his coat as he's making his proposal. Now, they are the yellowed leaves of autumn, and so it's not surprising that the proposal is rejected. Later, when Sarah does accept a proposal, it's under trees in London, in fact, all summer glory. And so then those leaves become a projection of happiness. It's all very contrived, but I don't think my reader will see it. There, under the surface, and I know it, and I love it. There's also a telescope a brass telescope or spyglass in the story. Now, this is a constant throughout the book. It gets mentioned in about the second or third chapter. It belongs to the grandfather. He firmly believes it belonged to Lord Nelson, and Sarah on occasions borrows it. At one stage, she's scanning the beach and sees a dead body, right, a murder victim. Later, she steals it when she leaves the family because after he's dead, because she wants a memory of him. We find her throughout the book concealing it under her clothing in her luggage and taking it everywhere with her. And at one stage, and this is the closest I guess I come to saying to the reader, hey, look, I'm making this symbolic. One stage, she looks at a kangaroo through it and it brings him right up close. His nose twitching. And she reflects on that she wishes she could turn it inward on herself and find out something about what's in it. So that's very deep, right? And it might give the reader a clue to go and have a look what else happens with this telescope and how it almost becomes a character. So there you are. Aunt Harriet's legacy is absolutely packed and full of symbols and symbolism. Now, you've now got insights that most of my readers don't have because I don't spell that out. I want them to find it themselves if they're clever enough. If not, it works under the surface. But if it's whetted your appetite, you'd like to see how this works in a story. If you'd like to read Aunt Harriet's Legacy, you can buy it on Amazon. There's a link. And it's available in paperback, and you can even get the ebook, I think, for about $4. So you can exercise your curiosity and have a look. And if so, I'd be delighted to hear your responses to it. So that is symbolism. Well, that's it for lesson 26. Thank you for watching. I hope you found something useful in what I've told you about. Come back next week and we'll talk about the character's interior journey, the thing that's happening inside while all the events of the plot are unfolding. Until then, goodbye for now and keep safe.